You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
The following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Coming in at 195 pounds from Studio A, he is the reigning, defending, undisputed host of the Ring of Thunder, Sexy Thor! Hello, Thunderverse. Welcome to episode 65. This is probably the first time I've actually said the episode number in my intro, but what are you going to do? It is Memorial Day. We're just not even 24 hours removed from Double or Nothing. And man, what a great pay-per-view it was. Spoiler alert. And of course, it is Memorial Day, a day of remembrance. And for a lot of people, basically them practicing for fucking 4th of July. It's not my opinion or a pessimistic view or anything. It's just an observation. But we don't need to get into that. What we will get into, well, because even though this podcast for the most part is just a weekly, play-by-play of all the different shows that happened in the past week and all that, I always like to mix it up some and try to make it fun for myself, because if it's fun for myself, then it's fun for you. If it's fun for you, you keep listening. Imagine that. So first off, I want to talk about how, I went to Walmart last week, and I've been hearing that Drew McIntyre's book, A Chosen Destiny, is sold at Walmart. It's one of the places sold at Walmart besides the obvious places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. And I keep hearing it's at Walmart too, so I have now checked both major Walmarts near me. Did not find it, but this time I found a book that I feel like I've known has been out for the last few months, but for some reason when I saw this, I was just like, oh, that's a thing. And it's a book by John Cena that apparently came out in January of this year. So basically the 13th month of 2020, called Be a Work in Progress. And it's really nice. It's got a lot of inspirational stuff in it. If you want to kind of marginalize the book, when you're summing it up, you could basically say it's the book form of John Cena's Twitter feed. Because, on his Twitter is basically nothing but, little bits of wisdom and positivity and everything, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it also sounds like something like a lot of people, especially a particular half of the internet, would just marginalize and just be like, oh, it's just this Twitter feed in book form. That is true. But however, if you get the whole Twitter stigma thing out of the way, it's just a nice book of bits of positivity and wisdom and stuff that apparently Cena's learned over the course of his life that he'd like to tell his younger self. And how can you hate on that? Well, obviously there will be people that will find a way to hate on that, but whatever. And of course, having talked about it online, there's also the whole thing that I guess I would have to address, where his comments promoting Fast 9, which is actually coming out in, I guess we could say, 25 days at this point. Yeah, June 25th, Fast 9's coming out. Goodness. I still remember it being March and when everything was being announced as delayed. Well, a lot of those movies, had that view of, hey, maybe movie theaters will be open by this summer, by this fall, and we can reopen then. So they just pushed it back to later in the year. But nope. March 2020, Fast 9 fucking delayed itself to Memorial Day weekend of 2021. I was just like, damn, I hope it doesn't take that long. Actually, it does take that long, plus 1 month. Go fucking figure. But here we are. Everything's starting to happen again. The good things are happening again, not 2020 happening again. Good God, please don't ever let that be a thing again. So anyways, gotta address it since we're talking about Cena, and of course we won't stop talking about Cena. I mean, I'm not going to constantly talk about Cena, but he'll still be brought up on this podcast from time to time, so I figure, fuck it, address it, because obviously news broke and people got in a big fit over the fact that, in his promotion and in mentioning that Taiwan would be the first place to see it, he called them a country, which China does not recognize as a country. So he went on Chinese social media and apologized to them for calling it a country. Now that we've established this here on the Thunderverse multiple times, that when big public figures, say a oopsie, even though I don't really think it's a oopsie. Well, it's a oopsie in his particular context, whatever. This is why I don't like or enjoy talking about this shit, because it's the whole choose your words carefully, otherwise you're going to be apologizing or backtracking for discussing somebody apologizing and backtracking for something. Unless, of course, you take the route of just going along with everybody else on the internet and just making fun of said person and just criticizing them, even though when put in the position, you would probably crumble under that amount of pressure and public exposure. But, sips tea. But we've said that, these big public figures, whether they be in our political system or our entertainment, pop culture, whatever, when they have to go to apologize to TM, they're not really defending themselves. So why are we defending them? We talked about this almost 3 years ago with the James Gunn thing, except he said something actually horrible. And so, yeah, John Cena doesn't need for me to defend him. However, all I will say is that when I posted on my little Snapchat stories of where I said, went to Walmart trying to get cat food, but also picked up some wisdom from Uncle John or something. Because like I said last episode, within Thunderverse kayfabe, Sexy Thor's uncle is Uncle DJ, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. However, I also call John Cena my other uncle, Uncle John. So there's Uncle John and Uncle DJ. And some dude who I worked with back in the place that I have the most tenure and history in, is all I'll say. He and I, this guy, we're decent work acquaintances. I mean, he was a nice enough guy. He was a good worker. Whatever. But he just up and messaged me and said, Uncle John supports the oppression of Taiwanese people. Which, oof. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm not getting mad. I'm just taking this as an experience. If somehow I reach greater levels of success than I already have, because, look at the Thunderverse's general numbers. There is a degree of success in there. So I'm not trying to brag or overinflate. I'm just giving you the honest truth. But I'm also not going to fucking undermine myself just because you might think I have a big-ass ego. If you think I have a big-ass ego, then shit, you might be right. And if you're not right now, you'll be right eventually. But I was just so this must be what it would be like to have greater deals of success and you promoting things and talking about things you believe in. Because then you'll just have all these semi-randos messaging you, telling you their opinion or why you're wrong or why the thing you like sucks and all that, which, people already do that enough on my personal Facebook anyway, so maybe this is actually nothing new to me and I'm just realizing this right now. But yeah, when he messaged me, I was just like, I didn't argue back or say something shitty, even though I was getting pretty pissed at first. I just didn't say shit, just let it go. And I learned that from the people in wrestling and other forms of entertainment who's actually want to fuck with social media or have to fuck with social media. And that's just how they deal with those kind of people. And that's just what I did. But however, I'm just putting this out there and talking about this as the overall message of, people who I look up to who are sometimes forced to make unpopular choices, even though they've made unpopular choices on the other side of the spectrum, like, I don't know, have always declined to do the Saudi WWE shows, like John Cena has. Yeah, even though those people don't need defending, don't you fucking dare try to shit on me for still looking up to these people who still bring positivity and hope and inspiration to my little existence, because I can for damn well sure promise you that wherever you're from, that you probably know me from, the mutual place that we're from, that shit's probably the reason why I fucking needed to get into wrestling in the first place 3 years ago and into podcasting and all that. So you know what? Even though I say this, people still try to, shit all on the good things that I actually have going on. And whatever, they can go fester and rot in the place that isn't helping me out. But you know what? See, now I've just lost the whole point. But basically, fuck you for trying to make me feel bad about the positive influences that help keep me going today and keep the whole sexy Thor train driving, and go fester off and fuck off somewhere else. And that's that. Now we're moving on. So, on Raw, we started out with Drew McIntyre versus Kofi Kingston, and it was amazing. Until Bobby Lashley and MVP, who were watching at commentary, came in, and the match was entirely thrown out in a double disqualification. And then later on, they went to Adam Pearce, and he was like, okay, you guys will do it again. The winner will face Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell. And if Lashley or MVP interfere, then Lashley is suspended 90 days without pay. So we're going to do this again, which the process of that should be entertaining, but the thought of, oh boy, we had a great thing going on, and now you're going to try to double down on it to, it could be the same amount of awesome. It could end up being more awesome, but when you try to double down and law of diminishing returns and all that, and it's just like, why couldn't we just have had the conclusive finish to the match that was already really fucking good? But we'll see what it's got going on. And then, of course, the previous week, Asuka defeated Charlotte. Well, last week, Charlotte defeated Asuka, and that was apparently just enough. And just like, oh, okay, well, Charlotte can go face Rhea Ripley at Hell in a Cell now. And they gave Asuka a squat. But why are we surprised about this anymore? And then Reginald interfered in Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler's rematch against Natalya and Tamina for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. And, of course, Shayna caught on to this. She got mad, and she made him go to the back. But as he was walking up to the ramp heading to the back, he was blinded by pyro again. And you didn't see her, but of course, you were meant to surmise that this was more Alexa Bliss shenanigans, but you didn't see her at all this episode because, and we got to take this episode into a serious note again, but because Monday, part of the way through as she was about to head to Raw, her pet pig, Larry Steve, who she's had since 2017, he got really weak and sick, and she had been trying to go to all the vets near her in the Orlando area, trying to find somebody who will treat a pig. And then even her own vet was just like, they didn't feel comfortable treating Larry in his current condition. So she kept trying to find out. She reached out over social media trying to find some tips or some people to talk to hopefully help Larry out. And, even Cash Wheeler of FTR, who, of course, worked with Alexa in WWE back when he was not important, back when they were in there as the Revival. He offered to transport Larry to a vet in his truck, but Larry was just simply too much in pain to, be transported. So and it was almost impossible to find a vet to go to make a house call. And so she headed to Raw, and I'm not going to speculate if she was in any condition to make a sort of appearance there and still be, burn Reginald. But yeah, she went to Raw, and then in the early morning of Tuesday, the day before Larry Steve's 4th birthday, sadly, he passed away. So, you all know how much of an Alexa fan I've been even before WWE, and Larry Steve has been such a very charming and adorable part of her social media and part of her life. And this is it's just really sad, because it doesn't matter whether it's a dog, cat, pig, parakeet, whatever. Losing a pet is always heartbreaking, and the fact that, almost none of the vets were able to do anything or could treat pigs is just not right. We should really probably normalize having pigs as pets and making sure that these animal hospitals are able to properly treat them as well. So that's just what I'm saying. So rest in peace, Larry Steve. You were very much loved by your mother, Alexa, and both your fathers, Alexa's ex-fiance, Buddy Murphy, who they were together when Alexa first got Larry. And then, of course, her current fiance, Ryan Cabrera, who there was plenty of funny videos up on her social media of Ryan playing guitar and singing to Larry. That was just very adorable, and Larry just reacting to it. So yeah, it's just very sad, and all the condolences and best wishes to Alexa as she's going through this, because, like I said, doesn't matter what the animal is, the loss of a pet, and yes, a lot of us, and it's basically normalized by now, consider them family members, as well they should be, virtually like children, which, yeah, as it should be. So, yeah. Moving on. Riddle and Xavier Woods had their match after their little sort of tussle after Kofi beat Randy 2 weeks ago. And holy shit, that was easily the best match of the night. Like, Riddle is obviously always great, and Xavier Woods, we forget how much of a wonderful singles wrestler he is too, because he's just been killing it with the New Day for the last 7 years. But also remember, he also had a pretty good run as a singles wrestler in TNA as Consequences Creed. And on Twitter after the match, he even made references. He even referenced that past, saying that, Consequences came out that night. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, definitely go out of your way to watch it. It is definitely one of the few bright spots of Monday Night Raw that happened per usual. And also some news about SummerSlam. So basically our whole summer schedule is pretty much set right there, but This time, Summerslam is set for Saturday, August 21st. And if you're a little confused that you heard Saturday, no, you absolutely heard that right. I believe it's also the same day as a Manny Pacquiao fight that's going on. So, oh no, this summer's going to be pretty crazy. Of course, recently somebody called me Hot Thor, which made me think of, the branding of Hot Thor Summer and what that could mean. I'm pretty sure it's just like the time between Double or Nothing and SummerSlam. I mean, might as well. And then after SummerSlam, where it's positioned in August, or just the fact that it's in August, should we then go from Hot Thor Summer to the road to Dragon Con, to pretty much right after Dragon Con, Halloween season. That's pretty much how my year is planned out usually. So, yeah, SummerSlam actually on a Saturday. There will probably be a takeover like that Tuesday or Wednesday or something. I don't know. Who knows? But there was the full slate of dates announced for the WWE live shows. And I'm not going to go over all of them, but holy shit, whoever was booking all that probably listened to Ring of Thunder instead of looking at what I replied with on Adam Pearce's Twitter feed when I said Greenville and Atlanta. Because there's no Atlanta and no Greenville, but there's actually dates for Charlotte and Columbia on the 14th and the 15th of August. So pretty much, of course, I pretty much in verbatim said that even if there was no shows in Atlanta, if there were any shows around the Carolinas like Charlotte, and I think I mentioned Columbia, I said, hey, I've got no problem going to those either. I'm not exclusive to just Greenville and Atlanta. If there's still a nearby one in the Carolinas, I'll go to that too. Well, sure enough, there's not one in Greenville and Atlanta, but there's one in Charlotte and Columbia. So I guess it's time for me to put my money where my mouth is. So myself and Nick are looking at going most likely to the one in Charlotte. So yeah. But of course, I will update you with all that as I try to get the time off and buy the tickets and everything. So Cameron Grimes and Ted DiBiase had the $1 million face-off. And Ted DiBiase was just like, I'm just a dick to you because you remind me of a younger me. And then LA Knight came out and he was just like, hey, Ted DiBiase, you don't need to be working with Cameron Grimes. You need to go to this guy with the $1 million smile and the $1 million body, L.A. Knight. And, we should work together. And then Cameron Grimes pretty much just got knocked on his ass by L.A. Knight. And then DiBiase went up to Grimes while he was still down and was just like, ah, ha, 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 ha. That was probably a terrible Ted DiBiase laugh, but whatever. And then Frankie Monet, formerly known as Taya Valkyrie, debuted. And she used the Glam Slam as her finisher on Cora Jade. And everybody online who had a problem with her new name, I mean, don't worry. She still has the same ring gear as she did as Taya Valkyrie, the same sort of entrance pose. Roughly, I'd say both of her theme songs from Impact and here on NXT I think I enjoy them about the same. And then, her finisher is fucking Beth Phoenix's Glam Slam. Even Beth Phoenix on commentary, when she did that move, she was just like, that looks familiar. So you pretty much have Taya Valkyrie, but just with a different name. It's okay. Change is okay, especially when they're this minuscule. But speaking of change, and I don't know if this is actually speaking of change, Indy Hartwell was going around the NXT building looking for Dexter Lumis, and she almost picked a fight with Everrise, who were just being dicks that she interrupted their show trying to look for Dexter, when Drake Maverick just popped up out of nowhere, and he was just like, I saw him 2 hours ago in that room. So she went in there, and there was a whole lot of freaky drawings of Dexter Lumis. Basically, she heard him. He was there as her masseuse, just spying on her, being all Dexter Lumisy when she and Candace were at the massage parlor, when Indy thought that he had moved on to Shotzi and or Ember, and she called him a loser. So pretty much what she saw were drawings of that moment and of his broken heart and all that, and she was just like, no. So Index to be continued. And of course the main event that had wonderful hype to it, and I think pretty much damn near lived up to it, was Karrion Kross versus Finn Balor 2 for the NXT Championship. Kross won. There's talks of maybe Finn Balor's going back to the main roster, and it's just like, well, I kind of want him to, but now unfortunately we just have trepidation of our favorite NXT stars going up to the main roster and like just getting misused. And it's double for Finn Balor because we already seen him go to the main roster and be used not as he should be. So yeah. Oh, so how about, and this may seem random, but talking about NXT call-ups to the main roster and getting misused and all that made me think of Damian Priest, who's actually, he hasn't had a perfect start so far on the main roster, but it's still better than most, and it's still going pretty good, so there's still hope. But announced for tonight on Raw will be Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair on Miz TV, and the Miz will be back. Will he be a zombie? He should be a zombie. He should be a zombie TV host. And if he's not, well, it wouldn't surprise me. It's been 13 months since AJ Styles was literally buried alive by The Undertaker. And yet he came back without explanation, and now we've just accepted it. And now he's Raw Tag Team Champions with Omos. So you know what? We can call it out, and we can be like, well, hey, Miz should be a zombie. Miz should be dead. But you know what? Eventually, we're just going to let it go. Let's just be honest about that. And then on SmackDown, it started out with a wonderful promo war between the Usos and the Street Profits. And then they actually had their match, which is definitely for the first time ever between those two teams. And the Usos won. So immediately they were like, hey, SmackDown Tag Team Championship opportunity. And Roman looked mad at all, and it looked like Jay didn't do something according to plan, judging from what the sort of talk that Roman was having with him in the locker room after. But we'll see what's what, because in the main event, Ray and Dominic defeated the Dirty Dogs in reverse of how they won at Backlash, because at Backlash, Dominic was hurt, and Ray took care of most of that match. And then this time, Ray was hurt being attacked while he was just trying to pray. And then Dominic came out and fought Rude and Ziggler by himself. And then Ray's music hit and Ray came out. And that actually provided the distraction. So Dominic pinned Robert Roode with the surprise roll-up. And so the Mysterios are still tag team champions. And SmackDown ended with the Mysterios confronting the Usos. So two very important wrestling families in the WWE going face to face. And I believe they'll be facing each other this coming Friday on SmackDown. To which, by the way, because the NBA playoffs, there's still a Friday Night Dynamite this week as well. And yeah, the Usos came out to face the Mysterios as Roman just watched from his nice-ass locker room like, huh. But no Cesaro, because Cesaro is, on the shelf right now, quote-unquote, after Seth viciously attacked him last week. And then we just got a nice and funny, hilarious promo from Seth like we always do. But this one was special because Friday was Seth's birthday. So happy birthday to Seth. And also Roman had a birthday like 3 days earlier. So now I believe Seth is 35 and Roman is 36. So we're about to get into commercials. And we're going to talk all about Double or Nothing, which we know is why you're really here. But can you believe it? Because, last week I made a remark about how I really should be watching AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation again. And sure enough, that's what I did. All thanks to the fact that Dynamite had moved to Friday and was doubled up with SmackDown, so my Wednesday was free. And Julia Hart, the two-time national champion cheerleader, who's with the Varsity Blondes, got her first win. And Sunny Kiss had a match with Joey Janela. Sunny Kiss had a match with, I think it was Brian Cage. It was somebody from Team Taz. And then proceeded to get beaten up by Team Taz afterwards. But instead of helping his tag partner, Joey Janela just walked away. And that's confusing because then Friday on Dynamite, Joey Janela had a match with Hangman Page, and Sunny Kiss was out with him, and the whole time they just acted like nothing happened. So maybe the fallout is coming on this coming Dark? I don't know. Maybe we'll see. So on to Double or Nothing, but first, those commercials.
Here at the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, we make every show from the finest ingredients. Juicy interviews, fiery film nights, delicious Desert Island DVDs, and pack it all into a slice of life in every episode. Order up our specials now from your delivery guys. Sean from Canada, Dan from Kent in the UK, and Paul from near Liverpool in the UK. Here on the ESO Network, the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, serving you a slice of life.
My name is Mark McCray, and I'm the author of The Best Saturdays of Our Lives.
I'm Dan Klink, co-host of the Best Saturdays of Our Lives podcast.
The Best Saturdays of Our Lives features programming trends from the 1966 television season all the way through the last hurrah of the early digital age of the 1990s.
On the show, if it's animated, we talk about it.
Order your signed copy today at tbsool.com
And listen to the podcast at esonetwork.com and all podcast platforms.
Hello. Have you ever wondered how much Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster sold Superman's rights to DC for? Or which popular football star was the Sam Wilson the Falcons' physical appearance based on? You can find all that and more at the History of Comic Books podcast, a podcast dedicated to the creators, events, history, and the companies that made the great comic book medium. Hosted and created by your friendly neighborhood JT Wheatley. Please give it a listen at iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, and all our podcasting platforms. Thank you, and go ahead and enjoy yourself a good comic book.
Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals.
It's Amanda Bones.
And I'm Ashley.
Of How to Talk to Your Friend About Wrestling, the podcast on the Count Out Wrestling Podcast Network, a weekly show where we talk about all of our favorite things, babes, blood, and brutality.
We also talk about other fun things, like is Kenny Omega finally too tan? And how much blood is too much blood? Because that looks like way too much blood.
So join us on the adventure of teaching me, Amanda Bones, about wrestling.
Look, we gotta talk.
Yeah, Thunder Talk.
We're going all kinds of sideways with that sweet nerd junk.
Woke nerd junk.
It's topical,
Political.
Dare I say radical.
We've got all your latest news and reviews.
Hot music.
And a whole lot of comedy.
but it ain't for kids.
Definitely mature content.
So let's talk.
Let's talk Thunder Talk.
Thunder Talk is a proud member of the ESO network. And now the part of the podcast you waited like 30 minutes for. Double or Nothing. Again, holy shit, what an amazing pay-per-view. It started out with probably the best pre-show buy-in, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen in ages. And I'm pretty sure the Ricochet Sheamus part of the pre-show over on WrestleMania Backlash was pretty terrific too. But this even beat that, and it's partly because Daily's Place was at full capacity, starting with Friday Night Dynamite. So we got Serena Deeb versus Riho for the NWA Women's Championship with a whole lot of fans. And yeah, wonderful storytelling without really too much of a build or, much in the way of words or promos or anything. Because we still managed to establish that Serena Deeb is a heel now. And we sort of had been kind of low-key hinting to that. She was a heel with other matches she had on Dynamite. But yeah, this one, she pretty much went full-blown heel. When Riho went to shake her hand, Serena just smacked her. And then she really worked on that leg and gave that leg fucking hell. And then, yeah, wonderful match. Ended with Riho tapping out to the Serenity Lock. And here we are on to the races of the main show. It started out with Hangman Page defeating Brian Cage. So this is the Page versus Cage that we were talking about. Now I'm just waiting for Ethan Page versus Christian Cage, and then the Pages and the Cages to team up and, go fight each other. Though it'd probably make more sense to have like Hangman Page and Christian Cage versus Brian Cage and Ethan Page. Oh man, in a steel cage. I'm only like semi-stealing that from Simon Miller. The only part that's originally me is the alignments that should happen. Because people would think, oh, get Cage and Cage versus Page and Page. But it's like, no, just have a Cage and a Page versus a Cage and a Page. I think that works better. But yeah, Hangman Page defeated Brian Cage. And in the build to this, Brian Cage was insisting that Team Taz does not help him. And he just take out Hangman Page by himself this time. Because when he beat Hangman Page the first time, it was because of Team Taz. And so Hangman Page pretty much tapped into his, macho insecurities and was just like, if you should try to beat me by yourself if you are actually able to. So Brian Cage was like, yeah, I totally will. And, I think the story being told here was that Brian Cage actually probably would have been able to beat Hangman Page by himself, but then his own team, that being Hook and Ricky Starks, because Powerhouse Hobbs was like nowhere to be found, I guess getting ready for the Casino Battle Royal, went out to try to distract the ref or Hangman Page or whatever, but instead distracted Brian Cage because he was busy yelling at them. And then that pretty much opened up Hangman Page to hit that buckshot lariat and get the 1, 2, 3. So essentially, Cage would have won. Then Team Taz, didn't go according to his wishes, so he ended up losing. And then, yeah, he looked like he was about to straight up destroy Ricky Starks, but then Starks was just like, oh no, don't touch me, my neck still hurts. That's why he hasn't been in action for a good long while. So yeah, we might see Brian Cage go his own way here real soon. And then next was the AEW Tag Team Championship, where the Young Bucks defeated Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. And man, good on Eddie Kingston to finally get that big crowd pop that he's been waiting for, because he, of course, joined early on during the pandemic shows. And, of course, they've all been working with limited capacity crowds and all that. And before AEW, Eddie Kingston was always strictly, doing indie shows and all that. Never went to WWE or anything, or the land of sports entertainment, as he likes to call them. So this is probably the biggest crowd he's worked with, and good on him. That man definitely deserved it. And they even brought the Bucks stolen Air Jordan Dior's that the Bucks have been flaunting that Mox and Eddie have straight up stole off their feet a couple weeks ago. And at one point, when the ref's back was turned, they even whacked one of the Jacksons with them. And later on in the match, towards the end, Nick and Matt did the whole shield fist pose over Moxley's fallen form. And then Matt picked up Mox and Nick did the ooh ah that Roman Reigns does, like they were going to do a shield powerbomb, but then Moxley escaped, and it ended with him taking 4 consecutive BTE triggers before getting pinned. Holy shit. That was definitely quite the battle right there. And this whole pay-per-view at this point has just been not anywhere close to a disappointment. Then there was the Casino Battle Royale, and there was a lot going on, but we'll focus on Christian Cage because he was the first to come out, and he got to enjoy really the first time he's been greeted by a full capacity crowd in 7 years still, because I think he was in the Thunderdome for the Royal Rumble, and then the Dynamites he's been on, he's had the limited capacity crowd. But now, of course, full capacity, here we go. Like several thousand people all rooting for the returning Christian Cage. And he eliminated Powerhouse Hobbs, who had beaten the shit out of Christian on Friday Night Dynamite. And he had a face-to-face with Matt Hardy, which got a nice pop, as, of course, most everybody remembers all the battles of the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian years ago. And Matt Hardy was actually Christian Cage's last elimination. And for most of the match, I was really thinking, like, oh my God, are they about to book him exactly like they booked Edge for the Royal Rumble? Like, have him come in first, and then he does some stuff, but is mostly like chilling away while everybody else eliminates themselves. And then he finally eliminates someone who's played a very important part in the history of his career, and then ends up winning that Rumble or the Battle Royale to get a major championship opportunity. But no, that was not the case at all, because after he eliminated Hardy, it was him and Jungle Boy. And Jungle Boy won. Which, finally, because we'd been hearing commentary constantly put him over of, he's a future champion and all that. But then, like, he ends up either in singles competition or mostly in tag matches, ends up losing. And it's just like, well, when are you going to pull the trigger? And yeah, looks like they're pulling the trigger right now, because he won. And he will face the winner of the AEW World Championship match in 2 weeks. Oh, and also another thing concerning Christian, one of the people in the first group that drew the first card was Max Caster, who did a whole rap about everybody. And of course, when he got to Christian, he was just like, he mentioned he was past his glory days, and he said he was without an edge. So, nice little Edge reference there. See, there's a reason why I focused on talking about what all Christian had been doing in this match. Also, because talking about everybody else would make this podcast 3 times as long, and I ain't got time for that. And then, surprisingly, but then not surprisingly when you consider it in hindsight, Cody Rhodes, the American Dream, defeated Anthony Ogogo. And they had already been selling that Anthony had gotten an injury to the ribs during training, and also he does kind of have a bad eye, which is why he had to retire from boxing. And both that midsection and the eye was exploited, and also helped sell why, even though Cody looked like he had gotten shot every time Anthony Ogogo hit him in the ribs, it's not like the automatic death sentence that it's been for all of Ogogo's opponents beforehand, if that makes sense. And then Cody actually ended up winning, not with a figure 4 or with the crossroads, but with the vertebreaker, and got the 1, 2, 3. But yeah, in hindsight, it does seem like Cody was always going to win, because it is Memorial Day weekend. Like, how are you not going to have America win? And this was something that was thought by me and then said by Simon Miller on the Double or Nothing Ups and Downs. And I was just like, okay, I feel like it would be okay to, say this as well, because don't want to just come across sounding like an arrogant American wanker, because I'm Asgardian. I'm an arrogant Asgardian wanker. Go figure. And then afterwards, but also going back to the whole Cody thing. Yeah, of course he won. But then on Dynamite, there's a tag match between Cody and Lee Johnson versus QT Marshall and Anthony Ogogo. So chances are there's going to be some shenanigans either during the match or after the match, because there's always a post-match brawl on Dynamite. We know this. And that's probably, maybe, when Cody is going to be put on the shelf for a while so he can deal with, or start to enjoy the good things that are coming his way in his life outside of wrestling. Not deal with it, but enjoy it. Embrace it. Good for him. But there won't be the whole swan song, Godspeed, farewell for a while to Cody on this podcast, like was promised last week. Ha 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 ha. So next was Miro defeating Lance Archer to retain the TNT Championship, which Miro and Lance just fucking destroyed each other, and at some point, Jake Roberts looked like he was about to pull a snake out of a bag. Of course, there wasn't an actual snake in the bag, but Miro snatched it away and threw it on the ramp, so RAP to that snake that wasn't there. And then, if you could believe it, which we'd all been predicting this and expecting this anyway, but Britt Baker defeated Hikaru Shida to become new AEW Women's World Champion. And slowly Britt Baker is like becoming Seth Rollins, because she's got a super kick and a sling blade, which, that's nothing new. But also now Britt's adopted, and maybe she's had this for a while and I didn't notice. Maybe she introduced it on, I don't know, when she was climbing the ranks on fucking Elevation, for all I know. But yeah, apparently now Britt also uses the curb stomp, which is, of course, the move of Seth Rollins. And I've never really seen anybody else use the curb stomp. I mean, there might be somebody else like, 20, 30 years ago that probably did it somewhere in the NWA or TNA or whatever. But I've only ever seen Seth Rollins use it. And now I'm seeing Britt Baker use it, so whatever. But yeah, there were shenanigans with Rebel distracting the ref and Britt taking the AEW women's the belt and putting it on there while Shida's doubled over, and then Britt bouncing off the ropes and hitting that curb stomp onto Shida, and then finally that's when she got the mandible claw and Shida actually tapped out instead of passing out, which seems to be the whole popular way for people to lose nowadays. The most popular way to protect them, at least. So yeah, it is now the era of DMD. Man. And even though Britt Baker's the heel and Shida's, I would say she's still very much beloved by the fans. Like, pretty much everybody was rooting for Britt Baker to finally get that belt. And it might be because maybe a little part of it, maybe a big part of it, I don't know, you tell me. Because fucking WWE put, I can't remember if it was yesterday or if it was Saturday. I'd have to check again. But yeah, WWE put a video, I think it was for Nia Jax's birthday. And they said, yeah, Nia's been dominating since her debut back in like July 2016 when she had her first match against a jobber they plucked from the indies. And you know who that jobber was? Motherfucking Britt Baker. WWE, why you gotta be so petty? I mean, honestly, I mean, some people who are still like super loyal WWE only marks, you know, got a kick out of that and whatever, but most everybody else that watches multiple wrestling companies and, you know, actually has respect for people in multiple wrestling companies, they were just like, really? You're fucking showing Britt Baker getting destroyed by Nia Jax as she's pretty much about to win the AEW Women's Championship. Like, really? It's a bad look, WWE. It doesn't look good at all. And, you know, you might also be petty because Tony Khan cut a promo that was, you know, all fun about the whole rumors / news, maybe rumors or news, both of them, that Nick Khan, no relation to Tony, over at WWE has spent the last 2 months trying to work out a sort of exclusive deal between WWE and New Japan. And then Tony Khan was just like, well, the last 2 weeks I've had Yuji Nagata, I've had Ren Narita, and going back to Yuji Nagata, have had the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship defended on Dynamite. And so, and of course, looking at the comments for that video, of course, there were people getting butthurt about that. So, I don't know, man. But it's just like, come on. Showing Britt Baker get destroyed by Nia Jax, especially with, oh my God, the fucking comments of people who did not appreciate them trying to bury Britt like that. Just like started burying Nia Jax because she does have a bit of a reputation of has gotten backstage heat about, you know, these botches and her being an unsafe worker and all that. So, yeah. WWE tried to bite, and the wrestling internet community bit right back. And just a whole lot of ugliness, honestly. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, congratulations to Britt Baker, though. The next was Sting and Darby Allin defeating Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. And holy shit, Sting is 62 years old, and he looked incredible with this. He did a crossbody on Page and Sky from the top of some big old poker chips. He had a suplex on the entrance ramp. He hit Scorpio Sky with the Scorpion Deathlock and got the 1, 2, 3. God, try to say that 5 times fast. Scorpio Sky with the Scorpion Deathlock. Scorpio Sky with the Scorpion Deathlock. Scorpio... I don't know. You could probably say I didn't really try that hard. But yeah. Like, holy shit. And the crowd chanted, "You've still got it." Which, yeah, I can't argue with that. So Kenny Omega defeated Pac and Orange Cassidy next to retain the AEW World Championship. And Orange Cassidy was about to get the pin until Don Callis pulled the ref out. And at points later, when the ref was about to count to 3, Kenny just blatantly attacked and knocked them out. And then Gallows and Anderson tried to interfere at one point, but Frankie Kazarian came out for some payback after what they had done to Christopher Daniels. And Kenny hit Pac with literally all 4 of his title belts. And then Orange hit Kenny with the Orange Punch and was about to get the pin when Kenny reversed it into the Crucifix pin for the 3 count and the win. So in 2 weeks, Kenny Omega will face Jungle Boy for the AEW World Championship and will probably win, but hopefully this is still the beginning of Jungle Boy's push. Just like this is also should be the beginning of Hangman Page's push right back to the top, where he will inevitably face Kenny Omega at some point. And then Tony Schiavone announced AEW Rampage, which is going to be the long-awaited second show for AEW. Well, no, it's not Dark. That's the second show. It's going to be Rampage. Will premiere Friday, August 13th at 10 p.m. Then Dynamite will then move to TBS. And Mark Henry, was the world's strongest man, was introduced as one of the analysts for Rampage. And also announced was the next 2 pay-per-views. Sunday, September 5th on Labor Day weekend, or as it's known in the Thunderverse, Dragon Con weekend, will be the all-out pay-per-view taking place in Chicago. And then on Saturday, November 6th, Full Gear will be taking place in St. Louis. So we already know our next major pay-per-views. And then finally we got Stadium Stampede 2 between the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle. Remember, if the Pinnacle wins, the Inner Circle has to break up. And it started out with the Pinnacle rolling up to TIAA Bank Field, the Jacksonville Jaguars Stadium, and MJF called out the Inner Circle. And so the Inner Circle was rappelling down the scoreboard as Judas was playing. And MJF ran back in the limo, and the rest of the Pinnacle ambushed the Inner Circle in FTR's truck. Wardlow and Jake Hager tried to lock each other in a freezer, and Wardlow even brandished a sharp-ass icicle as a dagger. Then Wardlow threw a wooden pallet at Hager, and I feared Wardlow got splinters, as one does handling pallets. I mean, if you've ever handled a wooden pallet, like, you've probably gotten a splinter at least once, and you've spent the rest of your time handling pallets afraid of splinters. And then Santana and Ortiz tracked down FTR and Tully Blanchard to a sort of nightclub lounge part of the field, or of the stadium. And the four wrestlers took a shot together and then proceeded with the violence. And then it was revealed that the DJ of that nightclub was Conan. And Conan does have some history with Santana and Ortiz. I don't know if there was any history of them like outside of TNA or Impact. I'm pretty sure it's called Impact by the time Santana and Ortiz got there. But Conan was the manager of LAX. I guess he would be called the manager, or at least just part of the group. Back when it had first started at TNA with Hernandez and Homicide as that tag team, and then pretty much there was a next generation of LAX, and so that was made up of Santana and Ortiz and Diamante. I believe Conan was still there, a part of it. And I think eventually, like, Hernandez and Homicide, like, eventually came back in. I don't know, that story gets a bit complicated with them. And they probably have history with Conan and other companies as well, because that's how it is in wrestling. But yeah, Conan played some music for them to fight to, and he helped Santana and Ortiz out a little bit when Tully Blanchard decided to get involved a little bit, I think. And then Chris Jericho and MJF fought in the offices and in the hallways around the stadium. Wow, my mic just sort of jumped out at me. Jump scare. And they used a cardboard Shad Khan as a weapon. Shad Khan being Tony Khan's father and the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then MJF answered the phone like, "Oh, Chris can't come to the phone right now. He's too busy getting his teeth knocked down his throat," or something, which was a callback to The Rock and Mankind at Halftime Heat. It was flippin' hilarious. And they even, and this is my favorite part, but they even busted into the Jaguars coach's office, and they fought past head coach of the Jaguars, Urban Meyer, and Jaguars assistant head coach and inside linebackers coach, Charlie Strong. And oh, wow. That was fucking hilarious. And they fought all the way back to the Daly's Place crowd, and MJF's face was all bloodied up, and Jericho powerbombed MJF, my jerk-off friend, through a box. And then Sammy Guevara and Sean Spears dueled with some chairs like it was Highlander or Star Wars, but instead of swords or lightsabers, it was chairs. And the amount of chair shots to the head that Sean Spears was laying down, it was probably more like Highlander. And Sammy even found at one point Sean in a dark room full of chairs. So if you didn't know that his name and reputation in AEW is as the chairman, well, now you know. And Sean got away and hid from the Inner Circle Motorcycle Club, and he found himself being chased by Sammy in a golf cart. And then they went all the way back to the main ring in Daly's Place, where Sammy almost got to hit Spears with his own C4 move, but eventually got him with the GTH and the 630 for the 1-2-3. And now the Inner Circle wins and doesn't have to break up, and the pay-per-view ended with the rest of the Inner Circle getting in the ring. Judas was playing all the way through. The crowd was singing and cheering. Pyro happened, and the Inner Circle did their group middle finger salute. And again, what an amazing pay-per-view that was. And right now, like, even though I'm kind of known as a big WWE mark, and I do love a lot of the wrestlers in WWE, like Roman, The Fiend, Becky, Alexa, all of that stuff, like, I'm kind of a bit higher up on AEW right now, to be honest. And I felt that way kind of one time before that I can remember, and it was Revolution 2020. Because before that, I was just like kind of on the fence about AEW, but Revolution was just such an amazing pay-per-view that I was just like, okay, I'm sold on AEW. I want to stick with AEW and be a fan for billions and billions of years. And I mean, I guess I felt that way with the other pay-per-views, but you know, pandemic, no crowd, you can't really fault them for that. But it was also nice to just be watching those pay-per-views back when it was on Saturdays. But hey, Sundays are all right as well. Even though with everything happening, or actually starting to happen again, between haunts and trips to Atlanta and wrestling shows, live wrestling shows coming to places near me and all that, it's like, I'm not really going to be able to, after June, really ask off for pay-per-view nights on top of everything else that's going on, but I'll make it work, as I always do. And that's the 1, 2, 3. Thanks for locking up with me in the Ring of Thunder. Kick butts, nut nuts.
Welcome to Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
Hello everyone, Dr. Geek here with a shout out to all the scientists who worked tirelessly to bring a COVID-19 vaccine into reality. Let's face it, creating something of this magnitude is a miracle worthy of Dr. McCoy himself. And now, Dr. Geek needs you to do your part. Remember, each shot is one small step back to normal, one giant leap to putting the pandemic behind us. We can do this. For more information, visit vaccines.gov to find your nearest provider.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.